Deep breath, Kansas fans.
Deep breath. Welcome back to another episode of KU Sports Extra. Tom Keegan, very zen-like today, breathing, enjoying the life, the world, the existence around him. I'm Matt Tait, and we're going to talk a lot of Kansas basketball, and I don't think we're going to panic. Are you planning on it?
No, this is not a particularly quick team. Last year, they were overrated for most of the year. I mean, it was a joke that Kansas got the number 2 seed and Notre Dame a 3.
Laughable.
Kansas wasn't nearly as good a team. They just weren't. And Cliff Alexander, when he left, they became even worse. And
believe it or not.
This year, they have everybody back except for Cliff Alexander, who really wasn't there anyway. And Kelly Oubre, who made a kind of a minimal impact last year.
He didn't have all the answers.
No.
Didn't. There's no way. So, yeah, they're
Oubre.
They're better based on experience, and I really will be the first to tell you I thought that was going to matter a lot.
So did I.
It hasn't nearly as much as I expected, and you've seen that in the way that they break down when the first sign of adversity hits, especially on the road. But that brings us to the good news this week. The good news is KU may have lost 3 straight on the road, but 3 of the next 4 games are at home. And they do well at Allen Fieldhouse. It gives them an opportunity to get right, to fix some of these things that are causing them problems on the road. Bill Self said after that Iowa State loss that the most alarming trend is that they just don't play with poise when they're away from home. They're going to have to play with poise at home to win these 3 games, but 3 of 4 at home is a good thing for sure. The bad thing about it is 4 of the final 6 are on the road, so they need to really use this stretch to get right so that when they hit that final stretch, they're at least playing better and able to go out on the road, wherever it is, because right now I don't think there's a single road environment that you can say they're easily going to go win.
You know, Waco's not a tough road environment.
Right.
It really isn't. TCU doesn't have a tough team.
Right.
So there's a couple
but
right off the bat.
Oklahoma State didn't have a tough team. Well, they had a tougher team.
Good point. Baylor's certainly better than Oklahoma State.
Right. What's the bad news other than that?
Well, the bad news is Sviatoslav Mihailuk, and they always pronounce it Mikhailuk, but Mihailuk is the correct pronunciation according to what Svi told us.
That's a pretty good source.
Yeah, I think so. And he's just hasn't made that step forward you'd expected from him after a full year of college and used to playing against quick competition. Really hasn't made a step forward, particularly in Big 12 play. So once the schedule got tougher, once they hit Big 12 play, he went south. He has not played well. And, yes, he's only 18, but they were counting on him to have a good year, and he hasn't had one so far.
Yeah, it's disappointing because that's a guy that you expected would also benefit from that year-older mentality. But also, he didn't get to go to Korea with these guys. It probably would have benefited him if he got to play. But the thing it did do was allow him to sit here and get one-on-one attention from the trainers, from the staff that stayed back in the United States, and they could work on his body, they could work on his game, and you know, it just really hasn't shown up. I agree with you. That's bad news because they could use a guy like that in the rotation. Heck, they could probably use a guy like that in the starting lineup if he were playing to his maximum potential.
So a lot of season left and a lot of season for him to show that he can handle the Big 12 competition.
Think we'll see it?
I don't know.
Yeah,
I just don't know. I want more proof.
More proof.
He knows how to play the game. He's a fluid athlete.
Yeah.
So it's there.
I'm telling you, I've seen him in practice when he's on that red team.
Yeah.
He when he just plays free, his mind is not locked up. When his job in practice is to just frustrate the starters and the blue team, he's a menace. I mean, he really does frustrate these guys. He picks up steals. He jumps passing lanes. He finishes on the other end. He hits shots. So the trick is probably it lies in a staff psychologist or something. They need to get inside his mind, inside the mind of Svi.
Or
coming to Lifetime.
If the opponent is right, let him play through his mistakes.
That would be good, too.
By the opponent is right, that's kind of code word for TCU.
Yeah, not Kentucky, which comes to town Saturday in a battle of blue bloods, and it should be a heck of a war in there. We'll go to Breakdown Street and look at this team. Let's talk about Kentucky because they're having a terrible year, right? You know, well, they're 15-4 and 5-2. Awful. I love that. I love the perspective that these places like Kansas, Kentucky, Duke have when their teams are winning over 85% of their games and still just frustrating the heck out of their fans. But Kentucky, not the same Kentucky we've seen certainly over the last few years, but the biggest thing they have, in my opinion, is athletes. And they have a few guys, Tyler Eulis, Alex Poitras, guys that have been on a big stage that aren't going to be afraid of Allen Fieldhouse and aren't going to be intimidated by the atmosphere. And they have another guy who's not going to be intimidated by that, and that's John Calipari. So this is going to be an absolute war. When just 3 weeks ago I thought it was destined to be a Kansas laugher. I really thought the Jayhawks would roll over Kentucky. Kentucky's improved since then, and KU's shown some struggles. The thing that I think these two are most similar in is opponent field goal percentage. Kentucky's holding their opponents to 40% shooting. KU does the same, or certainly strives for the same, and I think that could make this just an absolute slugfest.
Kentucky has more quickness. Kansas has more experience, and I think maybe even more basketball skill. Although Murray is a terrific player.
Jamal Murray, freshman, is leading him in scoring.
Yeah, he's terrific. He's
freshman,
terrific in Chicago when we watched the Champions Classic. He looked like the best player on the floor. Alex Poitras, lay off him and just hope you can bait him into shooting threes. He's 1 for 14 from 3, which means, 14's not a lot, but you want him shooting.
Sure, yeah.
Briscoe's not hitting threes. You bait him into shooting threes. I like this game for KU, but I do think Kentucky's quicker.
I agree with that. What about the coaching matchup? We've seen this whether it's in Maui or at that Champions Classic. Whenever Bill Self matches up with Coach K or Calipari or Izzo or somebody like that, it's just so intense. And obviously the game on the floor is intense. They both got great athletes and top-tier talent. But these coaches are going to factor into this one big time.
Well, coaches factor in about the same amount every game, I think. I don't know. But
that's probably
the thing that, let's face it, it'll be fun to watch Calipari get booed. Everybody in every arena.
You sure that's going to happen?
Enjoys watching Calipari get booed. He's the perfect villain. But then throw in the fact that this is the one and only school, isn't it, with more wins than Kansas?
Yeah,
so
correct.
Add that, and then add that it's Allen Fieldhouse, where all the noise is contained, and
so much anger.
So as far as the coaching, that's the aspect of it I'm looking forward to most, because really Calipari almost embraces it.
That's what I was going to say.
He sits there and he looks so miserable at a neutral site game. He'll sit on those stools and those big domes and just look like he's been sent to the corner by the teacher, and that everything's taken forever, and so. It'll be cool to see what they have in store for John Calipari.
I think that fact is something that will inspire him to bring his A game. Whether that matters more or not, I think that's a guy who absolutely would love nothing more than put on his resume, I went into Allen Fieldhouse and beat Kansas.
He's kind of camera shy though, and if you do that, you're going to get interviewed on national TV.
Yeah, he doesn't like that.
He doesn't enjoy that at all.
You know what I'm also very excited about? To see how many Big Blue Nation fans get into the Fieldhouse. I know there's been a big movement about KU fans. Don't sell your tickets to Kentucky people. But they did, because they could make a killing on them. So I'm very excited to see how big the Kentucky crowd is. And it'll be tucked in the corners and sprinkled in. Obviously, it's not going to be anywhere near the KU contingent. But there will be some Kentucky fans there. How loud are they? How much does that offend the home fans? And how intense is that going to be?
And how deep are their pockets? We know that one already.
Right, yeah.
You can afford to buy a ticket to this game that you didn't already possess? You're rich.
Wisdom from Tom Keegan. Here's one more thing about this matchup. How about a tune-up for for Kentucky? They played Missouri on Wednesday night. So they play Missouri and Kansas back-to-back. A little border war love for them.
Well, man, if you can find any similarities between Missouri basketball and Kansas basketball,
yikes! Yeah, no, it's not a tune-up in terms of basketball, but it's their way of injecting themselves into that rivalry that is defunct. It's my favorite word. I'm going to say it again: defunct. All right, well, let's talk about it. Who do you have winning? I kind of got a sense that you like Kansas in this one.
I like Kansas by double digits with a good bounce-back game here.
Wow.
Where they're playing together as a team, and they're getting the ball where it's supposed to go, and that's into Perry Ellis.
So the energy is up. They're angry about this Iowa State loss, this road struggle. You just think double digits, though, huh?
Yeah, like a 10 or I was going to say, 8 or 9.
8 or 9.
10 or 11.
All right, fair enough. one of those where they control it the whole way, or what do you think?
Probably. Kentucky's probably got a run in them where they'll take a lead.
So win by 5 in one half, win by 5 in the other half, that type of thing?
If you want to go with that. I'm not going to get that specific.
That
win by 5.5 in one half and win by 5.5 in the next.
It doesn't add up to 8, though. So
it adds up to 11. So 5.5 one half, 5.5 the other.
Fair enough. I think it's going to be a defensive struggle. I think both teams in their field goal defense and just half-court defense, unless KU can get out and run, I think this will be really entertaining in the half court, kind of a Michigan State type of feel to it.
Well, Kansas traditionally plays good defense. We know that from Aqib Talib and Chris Harris in the AFC title game.
Unbelievable. We'll get into that a little later on Broncos Extra, but I'm going to pick Kentucky. I've got Kentucky winning by 4. I think that they're playing better. I think their athletes are enough to give KU fits.
You're going with Kentucky?
Yeah, 71-67.
Wow.
I won't be surprised at all if KU wins, but that second half at Iowa State's just sticking with me right now, and they just completely folded and melted down. And if they do that against Kentucky, they're in real trouble. I agree the energy will be up, so the early portion of this game will be huge for Kansas. But I hope it's a classic. I hope it's every bit as thrilling as it should be. But I'm going to go with Kentucky.
I'll go Kansas 81.5 to 71.
11.5. No, 10.5. Whatever. Who do you have playing well, Mr. Keegan? Is there any Jayhawk that stands out?
Harry Ellis.
What
I think
a pick.
It's clear that he's their best player, and
What
that's
a pick.
even clear to the Jayhawks, who will do everything they can to get him the ball.
What do you think? 27 again? 30? 41?
I like 28.
Woo! 18 shots? That's what he had the other night at Iowa State, I think, and he should have had about 28.
I'll go 17 shots, 8.5 in the first half, 8.5 in the second half.
I love it. I'm going to go Frank Mason in a bounce-back performance. Mason had 6 turnovers at Iowa State, and looked like the first to beat himself up over that. Not characteristic of how he plays. I think Tyler Ulis is a fantastic challenge for him. I think he'll be up for that, and I think Mason will definitely take care of the ball, but I like him to bounce back.
I think if Calipari played Ulis more last year, they would have won the national title.
There you go.
And Frank Mason is clearly playing with a left elbow that is killing him.
Right.
You see him wince, and you see it really killing him. What plays that affects him on, what plays it doesn't, I don't know. But when you're hurting and you're experiencing pain, sometimes that can affect your shooting, even if it doesn't specifically affect your shot that much.
I think it's mostly affecting him when he drives to the rim. I think he's, there's the contact in there. He's never been shy about contact, but
right.
I think he's less inclined to go in there and really try to finish over people because he knows he's going to get hit, and he knows when he falls it's going to hurt. So
yeah.
I think that's why you've seen him not finish as well as he has in the past, and he's still fantastic and can click it in at any minute, but he's definitely not right now. Let's finish it off. Most obnoxious. Any real good ones this week, or?
Well, Blake Griffith is good.
Andy Griffith.
Emil Griffith. What sport?
Tennis.
Boxing.
Soccer.
Boxing, I think.
Boxing.
Look at
Google that. We're not here for you.
Matthias Testi and Blake Griffin were out to dinner when Blake Griffin got a little testy over something and punched the assistant equipment manager.
Wow.
For the Clippers, and is out 4 to 6 weeks because he punched the assistant equipment manager. There should be something in these contracts, in the next labor agreement. You should be allowed to put in a player's contract that if he loses time because of punching an employee of the organization, he should be docked and not paid. But he'll receive his checks.
Right.
And he apologized and all that, and they had a disagreement about something. So Blake Griffin thought the solution was to punch.
Well, yeah. I mean,
the assistant equipment.
I love when I disagree with someone and I just slug them.
That's never
That
happened.
always takes care of things. What an idiot. That's ridiculous. What's more ridiculous? Injuring yourself punching the assistant equipment manager, or when a pitcher does it by hitting a wall or a cooler or something like after a bad inning? In an inanimate object or a human being, which is more ridiculous?
I can understand the urge to want to punch a human being.
Fair enough. We'll get into that at a much later date.
But because you would want to hurt that other person. But when you punch an inanimate object, the only thing you can possibly hurt is yourself. And if it's a dugout wall,
right,
a Gatorade cooler, very likely you will hurt yourself.
Just foolish. But this is pretty bad, too. I would call it obnoxious.
It's obnoxious.
You don't punch people you go to dinner with, generally.
No.
I don't, anyway.
No.
Blake, though, he does.
Yeah, you can't do that.
I bet he does it again sometime in his life, too.
I bet not. I bet he learns his lesson.
What a good kid.
But then again, I'm not Miss Cleo. How should I know?
Good Talib drop in there. I'm going to go with the Arizona Cardinals for my most obnoxious people in sports this week, specifically Carson Palmer and Patrick Peterson. These two guys completely no-showed against Carolina. Carolina was better. Carolina probably wins 9 out of 10. But championship games are supposed to be entertaining. They're supposed to be close. They're supposed to be dramatic.
Wow.
And there's nothing. There's nothing.
Desperate was this Bronco fan to have an upset in that NFC title game because he knows the Broncos have no shot against the Panthers.
No, I actually had
That's what we're talking about here.
I had let's say it was for fun, but I had some
recreational
fun
wager
on Arizona, and it frustrated me that they didn't play better. But it was Brian Hoyer-esque to watch the way Carson Palmer played. He completely no-showed, and that's been the knock on him.
It wasn't as bad as Brian Hoyer.
No, it wasn't. Nothing's that bad. Not even Matthias Testy getting punched in the face by Blake Griffin.
By Testy Blake Griffin.
But it was bad, and it was disappointing.
At least he didn't punch him in the... Never mind.
Yeah, good call. It was disappointing, though. Those championship games are supposed to be awesome. They're supposed to be fun. When you get to championship weekend, there's only 3 games left in the NFL season.
Yeah, and that would have been, I tell you, that would have been a very fun Super Bowl for you, Arizona and Denver. I get your frustration. I feel your pain.
No. It's going to be fun. You know what I did see that I thought was very, very cool since you brought up the Broncos? I saw Jason Whitlock on his blog, J School, wrote a piece today or a couple days ago, I guess, comparing the Doug Williams, John Elway Super Bowl 22, I think it was, Redskins, Broncos, to this year's group. And the interesting thing was he compared Doug Williams to Peyton Manning and Cam Newton to John Elway. Now, John Elway's not the athlete that Cam Newton was or is.
No, but he's a good athlete.
But he was for his time. He was that kind of guy. And Doug Williams at that time was sort of the washed-up, old man, just game manager out there, kind of like Peyton is now. It was
more
really
of a
cool.
Pocket passer.
Yeah, very good read. And obviously Doug Williams torched Elway and the Broncos in that Super Bowl. But it was very cool just to see that it's not something completely new. Cam Newton is not the first to do this. And, Russell Wilson was in a Super Bowl. Colin Kaepernick was in a Super Bowl. But I don't think either of those guys are quite as good as Cam or don't have the potential to be as good as he is. He's a beast. There's no doubt about it. And good for him. While we're talking about non-obnoxious people, good for him for giving those balls to children after touchdowns. I think that's awesome.
There's only one thing that would make me like Cam Newton better, and that is if he had gone to Kansas instead of to Auburn, because I really want to see this Kansas football program get up off the deck. And if you can afford to get players like Cam Newton, maybe that could happen.
Yeah, it'll be interesting, but should be a heck of a Super Bowl. We'll have an entire episode dedicated to the Broncos for those of you who would like to watch that.
Let's do it. Let's do a Broncos extra. But the stipulation being you have to wear blue and orange, but it can't be official Broncos gear.
Oh, I got all kinds of blue and orange.
Okay, then you have to wear blue and orange.
Are you going to wear
silver and teal? Is
Carolina
that what blue
teal or
teal and what?
Well,
isn't this teal?
Not bad, yeah.
That's teal.
That would work. Let's do it right now. Ready, go. Electric blue is probably the name of their stupid color. No, I like Carolina.
Yeah, you like the Arizona colors, though.
Real sharp. All right, KU Kentucky, speaking of blue. KU Kentucky Saturday night at the Fieldhouse. Should be thrilling on a lot of levels. We'll be there. We'll have all your coverage, and we'll come back next week to talk Super Bowl and the aftermath of KU Kentucky. Thanks for checking out this episode of KU Sports Extra. We'll see you guys next time.